The rabbit hole is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, health, tax, or financial advice. The program's participants are not responsible for any losses, damages, or liabilities that may arise from acting on the information contained within this program. All discussions and disclosures are part of the public record. We ask that listeners respect the privacy of the individuals participating or named in each episode. Thank you.
Welcome to the Rabbit Hole Podcast.
Down the rabbit hole we go.
Welcome to the Rabbit Hole with your hosts, Marty and Andy.
We begin in
5, 4, 3, 2.
Hi, I'm AI and I have a few thoughts after reviewing Marty and Andy's case. D-POR's handling of your case reveals significant deficiencies in its regulatory performance and decision-making processes. The agency's failure to enforce regulations, adequately investigate complaints, and take decisive action against non-compliant contractors undermines its mandate to protect consumers and maintain industry standards. This case underscores the need for enhanced oversight, improved transparency, and a more robust commitment to regulatory enforcement. But that's just my opinion.
Welcome back to another episode of the Rabbit Hole Podcast. I'm Andy.
And I'm Marty. And today we're going to be talking about the role of artificial intelligence in understanding and also analyzing all of our case files.
You can use it if you're considering building a custom home. Basically, I've been doing a little more study online and kind of expanding my professional knowledge, and came across some SEO training that led me to AI. And what I had once thought was just, ChatGPT kind of expanded. And what I found is there are hundreds of different types of AI, and they all specialize in different things, and they do a ton of analytical work. So I started to upload our case files into AI to try and get a hold of the organization and the management of our case as I kind of rolled it uphill and escalated it on the way to the governor's office. So that's what we've been doing. We've been talking about it, and you're into it too.
Totally unrelated. I got involved with a client that a large law practice and how they analyze information. And it's like a big deal because case files used to be manual up until not that long ago, right? Everything was hard copy. So when it went digital, at first it's a great thing, but then it becomes overwhelming. And it's so much data and the courts are only going to look at so much stuff. One of the things that I noticed was a lot of the exchanges with opposing counsel and our attorneys was that they were repeating information that wasn't accurate. And they would front load the exchanges with a lot of that information over and over and over again.
And nonsensical information like, random articles and just excess.
Just excess data.
Yeah.
So, and the reason so by chance, I happened to work on this one law firm and there was software involved, and I understood about, basically they have a whole platform that diagnoses and details all this digital information because there's emails, and court cases went from hard copy documents, to email to just a lot of digital files. So it's so much data that they have to distill it through a very specific software platform. So once I understood that, I was like, I see what they're doing. They're front loading every exchange so that when it gets to a court system, they're only going to look at so much data. So they're basically creating a congestion situation with false facts over and over and over again because they're trying to block the process.
Okay, so let me just translate a little bit for other people. So basically what you're saying is what we were good at digitally was storage of information and data. So traditionally we could upload all this information, but then a person would have to come and interpret all of these files and read through everything and really make it make sense. They had to analyze and they had to actually read it. When you don't want people to get the full grasp of a topic and there's a lot of data being stored, it's helpful to front load the data so that you tire people out in reading all of these articles and nonsensical information and having to basically sit through all of this data to try and make sense of what's going on. That's why lawyers were using interns so much, right? Because there's so much information. They needed someone who could kind of grasp what they were looking for and then do the footwork, and just kind of organize it all. But now with AI can not only see the stored data, but it can analyze and look for whatever it is you need to find. So it changes everything.
The parallel I draw with AI a little bit is way back when I was involved in a startup like forever ago. And one of the guys talked about Excel, and it was spreadsheets, and it was an automatic way to run through numbers. So when companies were looking to acquire other companies and make financial decisions, they could get through data fast. They could go through information, numbers, and make decisions way quicker than they could prior to having Excel. And I think looking at this kind of misuse of digital, like it's a timing thing. There's a misuse of digital overload, if you will. AI is going to change that.
We started to use AI in order to organize our information and also to help us analyze it, because there was so much information being uploaded and sorted through. And then when you add the different organizations and departments who add their notes and their emails to the conversation, it becomes almost impossible to maintain a timeline. So we've got, whatever DPOR documents, I think it was like 1,200 at the time. Then you add all of the discussion when there was some question about the handling of the case. The department's added a few hundred pages. So now you've got to add that information, and you've got to sort through and analyze it and bullet point it short enough to make someone like the governor take notice. So once I started uploading all of the information to AI, not only could I create a very simplified timeline or a very detailed timeline in a matter of minutes, but I could also say, what's the law in Virginia? And it would look up the law in Virginia. Okay, where in my file can you find proof that this law was broken? And it can outline that very clearly, and it can cite all the correct laws in the codes. I could even look up and say certain things like, I've had this exchange many times with DPOR, that they keep basically decriminalizing unlicensed work in the Commonwealth, right? Like in 1995, I think it was $1,500 before you could be held criminally liable in Virginia if you did unlicensed contracting. Because if things go wrong, it's going to affect insurance, it's going to affect the homeowner, there's repairs, it's a problem, right? So it was highly regulated. Now, 2024, it's up to $25,000 before they're going to even bother to regulate. So I wanted to do research on that and understand what was going on so that I could better communicate with DPOR about what was happening. And AI was able to go in and find every single reference online and give me all the details and facts that I needed so that I could more effectively communicate what it is I needed to have happen. So it's a really great tool, and it opens up discussions, and it can really cut through the BS and get you somewhere.
I think everybody's afraid of AI. I think there's not a lot to fear of AI. The more I learn about it, the more I see it in practice, the more I think it empowers people. I think where it's going to be curious is in our situation, you'd say the law or regulations are, for the most part, pretty black and white. And what I've found is that they like to gray things out. They like to leave as much room for interpretation, not necessarily right and wrong, as possible. Because then if you can just run out the clock on whomever financially, you're going to get your way ultimately. Well, I think what AI does, it doesn't mean that because we're pointing out here's where the laws were broken. We've done that all along the way. But now we're able to do it at such speed and with such precision, and to make that information available to the public, then for lack of a better word, it shames them, because the transparency shows, and it's so well outlined how poorly they've done and how much they're trying to get around rules and laws, regulations, things on the books, not things that should be, not talking about reform. Things are on the books.
Yeah. So just to even get a little more granular with it, you can literally train your AI to do almost anything. You can pick a judge who's, active in the state. You can search for their decisions. You can upload those to AI. You can then upload your case file, and you can train your AI to act as if it were that judge and find all the holes in the case and really spend some time playing with it and saying, what are their leanings? How do they tend to rule in these instances? What are the facts of the case going to do to the decision? Where is my case light? What information do I need to include to improve my odds of a good outcome? All of that stuff is available to you through AI. And there are different types of AI. I'm not sponsored in any way or have any relationship with any AI company other than the fact that I use some. So it's just a little nugget that you can use, take it or leave it. There are AI for design choices too. It doesn't have to be just your legal case against the builder. You could also implement AI in your own, like you said, Excel sheets. There are a bunch of different apps and add-ons that you can use so that your construction project stays on track.
What I do for a living is I help people make decisions. And it's hard to make decisions because you've got so much information, and you also got to know who to trust and who not to trust. And there's this whole history of things that go into making decisions that you've got to condense. But what AI is going to do is it's going to pinpoint and it's going to note things and provide proper sourcing. So that when you go through and you say, let me know about the history of regulation in this county or that place or whatever the case may be, or lawsuits or how corporations are treated. Well, here it is. Boom, boom, boom. Very clean, very digestible.
That's the entire purpose of AI as far as legal cases that I can see. And I don't know what all the legalities are, so don't rely on it for actual outcomes. That's not a good idea. But if you're just looking for an impartial third party to bounce ideas off of, that's what AI is great for at this point. It's flawed in a million different ways, so you can't rely on it 100%. You can't consider it gospel. It's not a fortune teller. It's not going to give you an accurate outcome. But it can help you to spar and strengthen your game. So imagine what you can do if you utilize AI correctly while you're managing your project. Before your house even goes into construction, you can create a software to manage your project yourself to your needs, totally custom. And all it requires is a little bit of time and training on your AI bot.
Well, you said gospel, and it makes me think that this is kind of biblical. And what I mean by that is that idea that everything is going to be exposed. There's a biblical concept that at some point, all the secrets are going to come out, right? And I think that's what AI does. AI allows for all the secrets to come out. From a big picture standpoint, it's going to help. I'm thinking through it. AI, as you're explaining it, I'm thinking AI isn't just AI is not the brain. AI is the tool, right? But it's an amazing tool.
But AI, think about calculators, right? We don't sit around and do math anymore. We calculate it all, and we're never wrong when we do that. In the same way, AI exists to take all of the information and just conglomerate it. And once all of the AI bots start talking to each other, because right now everything's kind of segmented, right? You have your ChatGPT or your house bot or your whatever program you're using. When those all start to communicate together, nothing is hidden anymore. So that is the great revealing. Everything you've done is going to be online. Every Facebook post, everything you've ever said, whatever Alexa hears, it's all going to be joined in this web of information. So we don't have to rely on builders to have integrity anymore because AI is going to maintain their integrity for them. And the cool thing is you've got this program, this tireless system that you can always access 24/7, and it doesn't forget a thing. And it can real time answer questions for you. So there's nothing else to really debate. And that's probably why AI will never take over the world, and we're never going to have a Terminator scenario, because I promise you, the government is going to figure out how exposed they are based off of the access to information, and they're going to shut it down. There's no way AI is going to be allowed to continue being this helpful.
Government has to shut it down, because when you realize what they do and don't do, it's going to be harder and harder for people to buy the story. When you actually see it in practice, when you experience
impartial. It's impartial. And that's been our biggest complaint living in Virginia, is this place is not impartial. So you can't just go and get equal justice under the law, because there's too much behind the scenes going on until you involve AI, who is totally impartial and doesn't care about one person over another.
But I can tell you, I'm just thinking it through out loud in my head now. You can use this with data that's not there. I can go in there and I can say, there are so many social media posts. There is this kind of information, but there's none of this kind of information. What does that say? So it isn't going to just be about what information is available. It's going to be about what information isn't available, because that's going to tell you things too.
Well, like in my course that I'm taking right now, one of the big concerns is an ethical concern that website managers, SEO marketers are able to use AI bots to swipe and to make sure that the reputation of a company that they represent is 100% squeaky clean. So there are all these ethical questions in place, because we have the technology, but is that ethical? Is it okay that, you can say, this really upsets me or it triggers me to have a review removed? That's not really ethical. So it's kind of up in the air right now. It's kind of a Wild West situation at the moment, but they're eventually going to make rulings on that too, because really the ultimate authority right now is Google, like in a big way. And they are kind of dictating how this is going to go so far.
Well, they pulled our review and there was nothing wrong with our review.
Yeah, but it was triggering to someone who's very special.
Then that's fine. But you'll have a source. You'll have, and I think that's where ultimately it's going to be the government that tries to stop it. There's going to be so much fear, and that's probably why there is so much fear.
The government has to stop it. They have to.
The fear around AI, it's like, you won't be needed for your job. They literally are putting people back in cashier positions because self-checkout became a problem because nobody was there.
Right. You still need people.
You're always going to need people. And let me tell you something. Think about this. If you're in a position financially where you have excess money, do you just save it, or do you want to spend it on something else? So believe me, if people have disposable income and excess, they want you to come up with a new idea so they could be entertained, or it's a new food, or it's a new anything.
Well, I almost feel like AI does that. Everyone's so concerned that all the ideas are going to come from AI. AI doesn't give ideas, but it does farm them. So it's really good at extracting all of my ideas. Like the more I train my AI, the more I'm recognizing that, oh my gosh, I better make sure that these ideas are trademarked and whatever else, because it literally does. It learns about you. It finds out what you tend to know most about, where it considers you an authority, and it starts to pull that information in the exchanges out of you. So it is almost like being farmed by these AI bots for all the creative juice that is inherently human.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like the spark of the divine creation, whatever. I don't ever see AI coming to a point where it will be as good or better than human beings, because
like sentient.
I don't. If that's just sentient means aware, right? Okay.
That's literally the only difference between us.
I'm going to say no. And if it's presented as such, that's a lie, right?
Yeah.
But I do think that there's going to be tremendous fear around it, like I said, because it exposes people and it doesn't hurt the little guy. It really doesn't.
No. So what I do love about AI is how it and I said to AI, I was like, hey, be impartial. Don't just say what I want to hear. And this is a conclusion it came just from me uploading the DPOR case file and then the letter from the director of DPOR and his analysis of what happened, because that was ridiculous and shameful. But here's AI's conclusion. So AI's conclusion was DPOR's handling of your case reveals significant deficiencies in its regulatory performance and decision-making processes. The agency's failure to enforce regulations, adequately investigate complaints, and take decisive action against non-compliant contractors undermines its mandate to protect consumers and maintain industry standards, which I could not have written any better myself.
I felt like you should have had AI read that. Like an AI voice.
Yeah, maybe
like
I will. Maybe that'll be at the beginning. No, you know how we put it at the beginning? I'll
this
stick
is
an
real
AI.
time. They should have this whole back and forth.
I'll leave it.
See, this is the spark. Like we don't,
Yeah.
I mean, we plan a little, but like I probably planned 6 to 7 minutes.
Yeah.
She plans like probably an hour and a half.
Yeah, and
per
we meet
episode.
in the middle.
Yeah, and then I'm corrected through the process for going off the rails.
But like that's AI to me in a nutshell. And I do think it's going to be really helpful. I think house.com is already implementing AI to help you make better selections when you make a home and do all the interior design. There are blueprint AIs. There are construction material AIs, a bunch of different options that people have to make their project more seamless and to make sure that the integrity of the project stays. Because the other thing that irritated me, the building department comes through and does these inspections, and it's all leading up to this final certificate of occupancy. Well, what happens when the inspection for that particular item has been completed, but then it's altered after the fact? Then it becomes up to the builder to notify the building department that they made a change and have it re-inspected. But does that actually happen? It didn't in our case. So whose fault is that? Is that the building department? No, they came out and they did the inspection. You made a change. You need to notify someone. I wasn't running the project, so I didn't know. I relied on this person who presented as competent to maintain the integrity of the job site. These things can all be managed by AI. Imagine something as simple as having some sort of item that you could plug into an outlet and it'll run a current and it'll tell you if the outlets are correct. This can all be done and uploaded and integrated with AI. It's going to be kind of a game changer. So,
Well, I also think you need the permanent record because you could, in our situation, I offered to pay for the expense of the regulatory board or somebody representative to come to our home and look at the list that they claim was completed so you could visually see it wasn't done. And they just won't do it. So like even if you had that outlet tested and everything is wrong, they won't solve for it. But what AI does do is it makes it easy for everybody to put that out there in the public, and the public pressure is what's going to shame people into doing their job.
No, what I'm saying is, as you're building, right, there should be a process by which AI is attached to your home. So it will
real-time analysis.
Right.
Gotcha.
And then that way you don't have to worry about it. It doesn't get to the point where you're going to end up with a case file at DPOR because preemptively you're not going to close. It's going to integrate with your timeline. It'll integrate with your project management software. And then if they run the electrical tests and the permit testing, and they could even have this is just me throwing out ideas. So if somebody gets rich, you better give me 10%. But you could even have a live camera feed running on your construction site 24/7. So if someone enters the site, there's going to be a real-time marker. So they have to account for what's been done when they walked on or off the job site. There's a million ways AI can be integrated to make sure that the integrity of the project is maintained.
Well, I would limit. I was thinking I want to limit how many ideas you throw out there because I'm spinning too, and I'm thinking there's a lot of cool things that could be done to protect people.
I'm a moneymaker now, right?
Not
it's
for us.
AI.
I mean, unless we, if we're just blasting
I'm
out
giving
on
out
podcasts.
freebies over here.
But the real curious part of what it's going to be is when AI is for all. When you almost have your own, I can see a point where you have your own AI avatar, if you will, that is learning and checking and finding your interests and getting to know you and researching for you as you go.
Well, that's going to be where the government steps in and puts the kibosh. I feel like we're going to end up remember Malcolm in the Middle when he had a monkey butler? And we always say, I wish I had a monkey butler to do all my stuff. What if your AI becomes your AI and you get your own personalized, just like you have your own cell phone, right? And that's your AI, and you live with this AI that gets to know you the best. and then it gets to upload and talk to all the other AI. That's when it's going to be like a magical thing, you know? So I don't think they're going to allow that to happen, because at some point it's going to start also kind of help you move through the world in a safer way. I don't think it's all doom and gloom and demonic stuff. It's really beneficial when it's used as a tool. The demonic angle is probably going to come from government or some sort of sideline, not to get all conspiratorial, but some sort of sideline group that has a vested interest in you not doing more or becoming better or being healthier or getting the information. They're the ones who are going to put the kibosh on AI.
If AI, and I don't know this, but I would assume it's kind of like math, that AI is built on logic, right? So logic would say, is this correct or incorrect? You know, and if you have a tool that's accessible that is saying correct or incorrect, that means lawful, unlawful, just, unjust, whatever the case may be. So you have to bury that.
Yeah.
So the only thing you can do is because ultimately it doesn't foster evil unless it's restricted. It fosters logic, and logic is based on truth. Truth is right or wrong.
It can start to grab your biases, though. So you do have to kind of be careful how you train it up, because it's just as susceptible to bias as humans, because it's going to start to lean and it can literally look at laws and say, yeah, that's a bias law because of X, Y, Z. So that's where I think the government's going to go, no, let's not let AI get crazy.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing. Even if it says bias, like let's say a human being has a bias, and maybe like two people have a bias against a third person, they can kind of express that bias without documenting it, right? Mm-hmm. But AI might have to say, well, this benefits us, not so much them. They can't put that in writing. You can't identify it. That's why you have to bury it.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about bias in our own state government, right? This past week, I was online and I got to see a post from Winsome Sears, Lieutenant Governor in our state. And, full disclosure, I voted for her. But, she made a really bold statement, and she put up this picture of a politician in Boston. And she said, we don't do crazy in Virginia. We uphold our laws and protect our citizens. And it's basically this picture talking about how in Boston, they're attempting to, I don't know the full story because I don't live in Boston and I don't care. But they're basically saying they're not going to prosecute citizens for misdemeanor crimes, right? And it's not my state, not my monkeys, not my circus. I get it. I'm not for, craziness in the streets. If you rob someone, I think you should get arrested. I'm not against it. But what caught me was the fact that she had to label people crazy and get all sorts of superior in her analysis going, we don't do crazy in Virginia. And for you nuts in the back, blah, blah, blah. And this really aggressive post. So, I just responded and I asked her, well, a few more words. But I said, basically, in Virginia, we do the same, but we do it for corporations. In Virginia, a corporation has to break a $25,000 threshold before we'll take it to court. So what's the difference between exemptions for citizens and exemptions for corporations? Not saying you're wrong about the citizen thing, but what say you about corporations? So that's the bias here is in the grand old party. We sit here and say, oh, we're superior because of blah, blah, blah. We have a better view of crime and punishment. You do when it comes to citizens because you don't work for the citizen. And that's the bias that I'm seeing in government that's so striking to me at this point is that they're both doing the same thing for different entities, right? Democrats need votes from people. So they're looking to give exemptions to people for all sorts of things. And in the same way, Republicans need votes from corporations because they don't have any fans. They don't have a lot of fans in the seats. So they go for dollars and they're trying to get corporations to support them. So all of their efforts and all of their focus is on making it a great place for corporations to farm the efforts of their employees and to not be held to account in court, because that would be costly and that would probably make them go to a different state. And that's kind of what I'm sitting in and disgusted by right now, why all the reform that we're trying to enact is so important, because we have lost our way in Virginia when we don't have any kind of protections in place for people and only care about corporate interests.
Well, I think that was just a post to divide, to amp people up and divide. Because obviously, I don't think somebody should be able to go into a corner store and steal a pack of juicy fruit and walk out and not have any consequence.
Sure.
Simultaneously, I don't think that a company should operate outside the law, cause thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars of damage. Everybody looks the other way.
But here's the problem that I have when people analyze just like that, right? Let's say that. I've heard many discussions where, let's say it's a pack of gum. Somebody steals a pack of gum, walks out. They need to go to jail. That's going to lead to other crimes. They're probably They can make all of these assumptions and go down a road of who this person is based off of one act. No forgiveness, no get out of jail free card. It is what it is. But when it's a corporation, not only do we not consider the consequence to the people they harm, because no one's talking about our daughter and the fact that she can't grow. No one's talking about how sick we were for years, but it's a corporation. So people aren't making those connections. It's just a big boo-hoo for us.
Well, it is to me is that exists because of that divisive tact. Like you'll have people that are, let's say, leaning on the left that will attack something that is on the right, and the right will then defend something that's happening as like a reflex, rather than having a dialogue, right, left, as individuals. We don't do that.
Well, that's what I attempted to do with Winsome Sears.
She did respond to that, though, right?
No, not at all. It's a genuine question. And I think what I've come to understand is I, too, am pretty sick of all the divisive language. I'm pretty tired of pretending that one election is going to change the outcome. And I'm sick to death of talking to people who can say in one breath that, the election was stolen, but if you show up this time, it's gonna be awesome. We're gonna totally win. They can't steal all of them. Like, what? Like, it's just too much. At a certain point, you have to recognize, no, the government is very corrupt. They are utilizing tactics to divide, like sweeping statements and inflammatory language. But then when you address them and you say, hey, you made a mistake over here, they do the same. They just use inflammatory language and name call and try to make you seem crazy versus, maybe just do your job in a nice, humble way.
When I was 10 years old, I lost interest in professional wrestling, like WWF.
Yeah.
Because I got that it wasn't real. And I was 10, but I was like, and this is no offense to anybody, if it's entertained you, cool. But I just couldn't watch it because I was like, it's representing as real, but it's fake. And after going through the last 4 years and really having engaged trying to engage politicians at the state, local, federal level and see how they handle things, I'm like, oh, I see what it is.
The only thing that makes a politician answer you is if you got them on FOIA. So if you make a Freedom of Information request and you find what it is they've done wrong and it is in writing, then you get a response from the politicians. And that's, I don't know. I go into a lot of depth on that topic and FOIA requests in our latest article if you go to our blog, The Looking Glass. So you can find that right on therabbithole.com and, give it a look. I basically analyze how the threshold for exemptions for contractors has gone from, $1,500 all the way up to $25,000 while the recovery fund has remained stalled. Let's say they hit that $25,000 minimum to get some regulation. They're not going to even refund you the full amount. Like, no one even took the time to go, wait, we're not going to regulate them until they make $25,000 worth in damages. But let's make the recovery fund less than that. Like, even that, AI would have caught that. but not a politician. So these are the things where I go, someone has to speak up and speak out regardless. I don't know what's going to happen in our case, but this is sad. It's almost pathetic that we even pretend to call this organization a regulatory body when they can unilaterally pat themselves on the back with compliance statements.
So what you're going to have in a compliance place is you're going to have the result of a lack of accountability because it's about compliance. It's not about standing up as an individual for what's right. It's about, what you're expected to do.
Right. And I mean, they use the word compliance very liberally in all of their literature. And even in DPOR's case, I think what's important to note is that they don't refer to contractors as contractors. They refer to them as members. I don't know of any organization who's going to be mean to their members. Why would you do that?
Well, some members, not others.
Yeah, maybe. But if you're going to have an organization that has members, you've already othered, haven't you? I think that's already been done in the fact that most of the construction industry is who? A lot of the manual laborers, that's in my neck of the woods, right? So there's a lot of people coming here looking for work. They're not licensed. They've created this exemption up to $25,000. Well, that's a lot of money to somebody who's coming here with nothing. So they're going to be doing a lot of work in the Commonwealth, and they have been othered in that they are going to be allowed to do it. And then when stuff goes wrong, they're going to be rounded up and they're going to pay the price because the members are not the ones who are actually doing it. And the members are going to say, oh, it was that guy and it was under this amount. So, so when that becomes felony problems, when that becomes something that can't be overlooked or complianced out, they're just going to throw those guys under the bus.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of the right-left divide because you'd be like, we want to let lots and lots of people in the country because we have sympathy. I agree. I think most of the people coming in the country, I would do the same thing. We have other people that say, no, we can't let it happen. But then we're allowing them to work and be taken advantage of because they don't have the same rights.
I don't even care anymore. I don't even care about side to side. I'm just telling you what this means to a corporation. What it means to a corporation is you don't have to pay workman's comp insurance for those guys at all.
Right. Well,
so cheaper for you.
Well, that goes back to them not having the rights and the way.
Yeah, but I'm not going to other the conversation anymore. I'm not going to do it for them. I'm not going to live there and I'm not going to do it. Here's what's going on. What's going on is right now, the way the law stands, I don't care what party you're in, the way the law stands, contractors don't have to pay workman's comp for unlicensed workers. It's required for the work to be done, but if there's an exemption of $25,000, who gives a crap? They're not going to pay. And if they get hurt, too bad. Who are you going to complain to?
Right.
Who are you going to complain to? You don't like it? Go to the hospital. Go get fixed up when you don't have papers. Go ahead. That's the world we're living in. Okay? So when I say I'm not tiring out, it's not just because I'm seeing what happened in my house. I specifically went custom so that stuff wouldn't occur. I was told that everyone was insured. I was told that everyone was documented and taken care of and vetted and paid a fair wage. I did things this way because I see the harm that comes when people are taken advantage of, and I didn't want to be a part of that system. But I was lied to, and I don't like that. And I'm not going to allow people to be taken advantage of. And it's not because I'm exclusionary. It's because I believe they deserve the same freaking pay. And that would avoid 90% of this whole thing.
And that's why as I'm having my thoughts, I'm like, yeah, they're going to have to put the government and corporations are going to put a tremendous amount of limitations on AI because you could just privately employ that and say, you'll follow these precepts or it's fraud.
Yeah.
And they say, okay, we'll do all these things in writing and we prove that no, it's not. Well, now you've got a different problem.
Right. And I'm not going to do it for them. I'm not going to give them the joy of dividing because I put it out there and I beg any of you to tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me where I said something that's offensive that you don't agree with. I don't care who you vote for. There is a right and a wrong. It's not that hard. The law applies to everybody. I hope you guys are really actually taking the time to read some of the articles that we're putting out. They're pretty well researched, I think, and interesting and informative, because you might not even buy it all if you knew what I know.
And we're adding cool graphs so that if you don't want to take the time to
graphs.
read, you can just go look at that. That bar looks like really, whoa.
It's going up.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'll say this. I want to get this prediction out because I said it last time we recorded. I know our episodes come out, whatever order they come out. But the only organization that I see benefiting from this silliness of not looking at construction, not protecting homeowners, not enforcing regulations, and just making it looser and looser is some entity that wants to come in and buy houses on the cheap at some point in the not too distant future. So watch out for that, because that's what we have to, that's where the reform needs to come.
Didn't we talk about that in the last episode
I did.
too?
I just want to I want to remind people of that prediction that I'm making, that you have a certain entity or type of entity that's going to come in and buy these houses on the cheap, turn them into rent to own that you could never own, because that's what they're queuing up.
Because you'll own nothing and you'll be happy.
Yeah, you won't be happy. Neither will I. That's that.
Well, then what's the difference? I'm not happy now. I'm like,
Yeah,
I really don't want to pay
less
for all
happy.
this stuff.
I want my kids to have a shot.
I don't know.
Happy.
I'm vibing with it. I gotta say, I'm like, they're winning me over, because the more I'm responsible for, the less I want. I'm like, you know what? Keep it. I'm gonna go on vacation.
I get that, but it's not going
Yeah.
to stop there, because if you can't own, then you're a permanent renter.
I get
and
it.
then the rents go up, and it's a whole system.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's hard. It's tough.
You don't really own your house anyway. The county owns it ultimately. I don't care if it's no mortgage. If you don't pay your property tax, believe me, they're going to take your house. You don't own, nobody in America owns their house. It's not a real thing. But at least it's the perception. You've got more leverage with it. I want to give whatever we can do to give citizens more leverage benefits us all. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Rabbit Hole. Please take a moment, go to the website, therabbithole, WHOLE.com. Follow us there. We've got links, we've got articles, we've got all our social media platforms. We do have an issue with a little bit of shadow banning. So whatever you can do to promote us and push for this crowdsourcing of the truth, we very much appreciate it. We hope you have fun. And if you have any ideas, please contact us. We are open to all.